Good morning, everybody. It's Steve, aka Aced Out, with some new Sorare content. We are presently in week 2 right now. So, recapping week 1, talking a little bit about week 2, and previewing what's coming up in week 3. So, let's just jump right in. Some interesting names popped out, overperformers, guys you're excited to see in week 1. I do want to point out we saw some fantastic game weeks from Rockies hitters outside of Colorado. So CJ Crone, who was an all-star last year, struggled in the second half, had a fantastic opening weekend. Charlie Blackmon also had a fantastic opening weekend. You know, the thing about baseball that's beautiful, especially in Sorare, is there's so much variance. So when I can look at the list of top scorers and say, okay, CJ Crone, Yoan Mancata, Adam Frazier, Adam Duvall, Trace Thompson, those are great names. Because it gives variance, because it doesn't mean that because you play the best guys that you're going to win. Now, as someone who does play what I would consider the best guys, it is frustrating not to win, but that's okay. That's not the point. The point is that's why MLB on Sorare is so fun, because you just kind of never know what's going to happen. Some rando guy like Trace Thompson can get a start and hit 3 bombs. So that crazy stuff does happen. Joey Gallo was a really interesting name that popped out. I'm a fan of Joey Gallo. I think he had some great years in Texas. Obviously went to New York, didn't go well. Needed to get his head right. He's in Minnesota, not a lot of pressure there, hitting at the bottom of the lineup. This is a guy who was an all-star, a Gold Glover, a guy who can absolutely crush. And in Sorare, he should be valuable if he can get back to the guy who was in Texas. Obviously, big F. But great opening weekend. Had a couple bombs. Had another bomb this week. So we'll have to see how that goes. Starting pitchers, no big surprise. You get what you pay for with starting pitchers. Springs out of Tampa Bay had a solid year last year. He was the top scorer at 46. And then you see Cole, Kershaw, Strider, Seth Lugo. What? Seth Lugo, of course, is now starting for the San Diego Padres. He was coming out of the pen with the Mets last year. So the funny thing is, if you are new to Sorare MLB, you'll notice that there's not a ton of position flexibility with Season 2's cards. And we'll see if they change that as guys play more positions. I think someone like Mookie Betts, who is, I believe, started 2 games at second base now, if he gets up to that 10 to 15 start threshold, if we see a Mookie Betts infielder, a second base / outfielder card come out, because that's going to be a very valuable card in terms of strategy. Seth Lugo and Spencer Strider, though, were Season 1 relief pitchers. So you can play them at starting pitcher. Well, you can play them both at relief pitcher. I know Spencer, you can play in both for most of his cards. I don't know if you can do that with Seth Lugo. I think he either had a relief pitcher or a starting pitcher. I'd have to check. But you're able to double dip with that, and obviously they performed extremely well. But here's the wrinkle. Scoring changed, and now relief pitchers are getting a ton of points, and it's impacting rewards. Here's the challenge that I see, and I understand we needed to do something on the relief pitcher side of scoring, because realistically, a lot of relief pitchers are useless, but I hate to tell you this, and I shouldn't say useless, but when it comes to being able to compete in Sorare, a 6th inning relief guy is about as valuable as the 3rd pinch hitter off the bench. And that's really how it should be. If you got a mop-up guy coming in the 6th inning in an 8-3 ball game, he doesn't need to get 5 participation points. That's just my feeling about it. And I understand that you want to give value to relief pitchers, so giving them that 5-point participation for showing up is great, but the problem is if you give it to everybody, then it's no longer special. I'm sure we'll figure it out. First week was just a hot mess, though, because all we had was a bunch of random relief pitchers who were finishing in the top 5. And in fact, most relief pitchers were outscoring starting pitchers with quality starts. And I think that's kind of where there's a problem. You don't want relief pitchers who are coming in and doing mop-up work, but they threw 2 games, like Steven Wilson for the Padres this week, who I believe finished around 28 points. But you had players like Steven Wilson outscoring guys like Julio Urias. And you just can't have that. When you have starting pitchers who go out, throw 5, 6, 7 innings, put together a quality start, and then you have a relief pitcher who does mop-up work, outscores him, it just kind of screws up things. So hopefully they'll address that at some point. We can talk about strategy down the road in terms of, is it great to start a guy like Seth Lugo versus a closer like Devin Williams? You know, and I have some thoughts on it. I'm sure if you look at my lineups, you'll see my strategy. But for the most part, I think it's an interesting conversation, and I don't think I have an answer or any advice right now because I'm feeling this out just like you guys are. So I've had closers who start and they've scored 20 points, 40 points. Romano was great this week, but you also run the risk of especially on a weekend, if your closer's team gets swept, he might not get in the game. That's just the way it works sometimes. So you start Seth Lugo, maybe he's not going to drop 36, but he might drop 25, and that's just as good as having a closer come out. So it depends on strategy. Obviously, the weekends are a little easier to play with those things versus during the week when you have 4-game weeks and there's more opportunity for relief pitchers to throw more than one game. Either way, I do want to give a quick shout out to Vinch, Vincho on Twitter. Congratulations, you were my co-captain last week that won. For those of you who don't know, this season, any of my limited competitions, I've selected co-captains, and those co-captains will be the beneficiaries if the team wins either a tier 3, 4, or 5 limited card. They'll win that card. Tier 1s and 2s, I'm going to be keeping. What I do with them is up to my discretion, of course, but I am going to be selecting co-captains throughout the year. If you look on my Twitter profile at SoRareAces, you'll be able to find the thread. I believe there's 250 people who wanted to be part of it. If you want to join in, jump on in, throw your owner name in, show me your limited lineup. If it seems like it's something that could benefit from a few extra cards, I'm happy to throw you in the mix, and we'll get you in the co-captain rotation. So I do want to talk about week 3. That's what's coming up. Things were a little tricky. We had the MLB decided to not release injury information before first pitch on opening day, which was very odd because it's not just so rare baseball, but fantasy baseball in general, rotisserie baseball, the lineups lock. And I tend to be a little bitter about this because I had Justin Verlander in my super rare all-star lineup. And I find out 45 minutes after first pitch, the Mets decide they want to go ahead and drop the information that Verlander is going to get scratched and he's on the IL. Now my super rare all-star team is sunk. That's no fun. Nobody wants that. I would rather lose on my own. I don't need help. It's that simple. So this week, what did MLB do? Well, the teams took it upon themselves to postpone games that were on Thursdays. Not every team, of course, but I believe there were 6 games that were canceled. Might be 4, but 6 games. We're going to go with 6. 6 games that were canceled or postponed and moved to Friday. And that screwed up a ton of people's lineups. We're talking the Astros, the Yankees, the Phillies, a bunch of studs. And you, as a So Rare owner, just like me, started a bunch of guys who had 4 games. And this happens. And it's fine. You can say, well, weather and this and that. Well, I'm sure that the schedule makers were thinking, some of these are in areas where the weather isn't great. So we're going to go ahead and schedule Thursday. So that way, if the weather is an issue, they can try to get the game in on Friday. But all these teams said, no. We want that game on Friday. We're going to go ahead and move it ourselves. And as So Rare owners, we just had to take it. That obviously changed a lot of things. It changed a lot of things on 2 ends. One, we got caught with our pants down as So Rare owners because our lineup's already locked again. 2, we were going into the weekend with very thin rotations. There were not a lot of aces that were going to be throwing on the weekend. This moved things over a little bit, and now Zach Wheeler, who was supposed to throw today, is going to throw on Friday. So he's now moved. I know that impacted a lot of people's lineups. I had started Hunter Green on my National League Rare team, which is in a really good spot to podium if Hunter Green pitched. But now I don't get that, so that moves over. my super rare all-star team. Sound familiar? Had Clark Schmidt scheduled to pitch. He's obviously not throwing today either. He's throwing tomorrow now. So what are you going to do? It's tough. Obviously, it's out of your control, but it's going to impact things. Now we've got Zach Wheeler and Hunter Green moving over. Before, we were looking at the week thinking, okay, this is such a thin pitching weekend. It seemed like guys like Jack Flaherty were jumping up in price. Lucas Giolito were jumping up in price. Now that changes things a little bit because you've got Wheeler, you've got Schmidt, you've got Hunter Green in the mix. You have some other pitchers in the mix who are worthy of a start, whereas before, things were looking pretty thin. It was basically like Woodruff, Kershaw, Rasmussen, Springs. There were only a handful of start. Obviously, Flaherty and Giolito, as I previously mentioned, are starting as well. But we'll just kind of have to see how that plays out. Now, what that means, though, and I want you to look out for this because one thing that we saw that was fun was on Monday and Tuesday, guys were hitting a ton of home runs. Teams were scoring a lot of runs, and it's because they were facing back-end pitching. I noticed, I'm assuming you noticed, my team didn't hit as many home runs yesterday. It's because there were a ton of aces throwing. Cole, Nola, Ohtani, you had a bunch of studs throwing. Guys don't typically just go yard on aces all the time. So over the weekend, though, we're going to get a bunch of back-end guys. So on Sunday, don't fret where you're at on Sunday. If you're in the top 20, if you're looking at a tier 2 or a tier 3, I would be uncomfortable. If you're not, but you're in striking distance, you should feel good. There's going to be a lot of offensive action on Sunday. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let me talk matchups real quick. So I use a website as a resource called fantasypros.com. I use a bunch of different websites. Shout out to Sorare FP and Sorare Data. Those guys are amazing. They're fantastic. Absolutely worth every penny. I use Fantasy Pros to kind of look at the week in terms of who my hitters are going to be facing for pitching and which pitchers tend to have more favorable matchups and whatnot. It's free. I can post a link. I'm just going to beat that thing real quick. I can post a link if you want to check it out, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of this, and I don't like to read too many things because it's boring, but it's some solid info that you can take with you and say, okay, that makes sense. Maybe I'll take into that. So these are the better matchups for hitters. So if you have hitters on the White Sox, the Rockies, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Padres, the Rays, or the Nationals, you have favorable matchups. They are facing suspect starting pitching. Not all of it, but most of it is suspect starting pitching. So if you have guys like that, so for me, that means I'm going to lean on guys like Luis Robert, Chris Bryant, Jeff McNeil, Giancarlo Stanton. I have players in that mix. Teams that have harder matchups this week: the Cubs, the Reds, the Astros, the Brewers, the Twins, the A's, the Phillies, the Cardinals, the Rangers, and the Blue Jays. Now, most of you probably heard some of your players' teams on there. I have a bunch of guys on the Astros and the Blue Jays and the Phillies. So I understand that. I still play my studs. I'm not going to not play a stud. I'm not going to bench Bo Bichette because Jeff McNeil has a more favorable matchup. I'm going to go with Bo Bichette. This week on my Super Rare Pro, for example, I'm going to be starting Xander Bogaerts over Bo Bichette because of the list. So we'll see if that plays in my favor. You don't need to do it with yours. We can just, I'll be the science project, so to speak, the experiment, the guinea pig. So I'm starting Xander Bogaerts at my middle infielder position as opposed to Bo Bichette, who I would normally start. And then I'm moving Bo over to my super rare all-star team, which, and I'd love to, I'm not going to talk about this right now just because I don't want to run too long, but I would love to talk about how I decide which players I'm going to put in which tournaments. So if that's something that is intriguing to you and you have some interest in, like, okay, I don't know where to play my guys, or should I stack them here, or should I stack them there? I'd also love to talk about some stacks, but like I said, not going to make this one too long. But if you are curious about how other people do that, like myself, and I'm just like you, then I'm happy to share what I do and what kind of goes through my head and then my strategy. It's not rocket science. For rocket science, I go to Sorare FP and Sorare Data because those are the guys who do the rocket science. I just have opinions and thoughts. So I did ask, and I'm going to wrap this up here, but I did ask for some community questions, and a couple of people were nice enough to chime in. So I'm going to try to keep it tight. But K-Lamp, who, by the way, had a fantastic game week 1, congratulations, K-Lamp, did ask about coins. Now, we don't have coins yet in MLB, but we're going to have them. I think we all assume that we're going to get coins. They're part of Sorare football. I think we all just assume it's going to happen. So how do I think they'll be used? I think we're going to see something similar for soccer. I don't play on Sorare football, so I had to take a look at it and kind of see how they use the coins. I know that they're expanding with it. I like the idea. What they do is essentially use it for more training teams, for boosting cards XPs, for creating, like, being able to spruce up your profile. I think those things are cool. And obviously the coins are free. So, the challenge is, if we're winning coins, they've also, Sorare has talked about if they're going to give memorabilia, experiences, game tickets, those kind of things. Well, I'm obviously not going to waste 1,000 coins on a banner, a Padre banner for my profile, if I'm going to need that 1,000 later to get tickets, or one of those sick, Sorare Letterman's jackets. Because at the end of the day, I've got to get one of those. I'm a size large. If anybody's watching, I need one of those Sorare Letterman's jackets. And I don't typically, you guys know, I work in apparel. I run an apparel company. So I'm not a big apparel fan, but I would wear that Sorare jacket. And meaning I'm not out like hawking apparel. I don't need your shirts. I don't need your hats. I'd wear them, but I would wear the jacket. The jacket's fresh. So in terms of coins, I know K-Lamp had a couple ideas, and he mentioned this in terms of being able to use them for swaps. And I think that's a great idea, especially in a game like MLB where you win a prize, you win a reward. So if you're playing right now and you're playing common, you're playing limited, you don't have a big budget. Like I said, you're balling on a budget. That's great. You're getting started, you're getting feet wet, you're fighting in the streets. That's all great. So when you get a reward though, you might be soft at a couple positions and you got a reward, it flips and you go, oh, I can't use that card. It's not going to work for me. It might be another starting pitcher you're not going to use. It might be a relief pitcher that you're not going to use. It could be another outfielder, but you've already got a stud and your utility spots are taken. I think when we get the rewards, this would be great to see. I'd love to see it. I would like to see your rewards show up and then you have 3 cards you get to pick from. Now, K-Lamp's idea was that you would get the reward and then you would have the opportunity to swap it for a different reward. I think that would be cool too. But I would love to see us get 3 cards and then you pick 1 card. So the 3 cards would show up and it would show their position. So that way, especially on the limited end, and it's not even that. I was talking to Orange Fly. He's fantastic, and that guy just dominates. But we were talking about his second base position because O'Neill Cruz went down. So for a guy like that, if he wins a super rare card this week and he had an opportunity to select a middle infielder, it would help him out a ton. So, just lost it. So I think that would be ideal from a roster building standpoint, because you do have injuries pop up. Sometimes you just have 2 games in a game week. It's nice. It would be great to be able to just select the position of the reward, or like I said, just have the 3 and you get to pick one. I think K-Lamp's example of being able to use coins to be able to swap it out, great idea. So I'd love to see more of that. Orange Fly had asked, in regards to the announcement from Sorare MLB in regards to the unique competitions, what I thought. So I'm going to give you some unfiltered feedback on this. I'm glad he asked via Twitter, so I had a little time to digest my feelings on it. because when you're doing something live, you just kind of go, and I probably wouldn't have had the answer I wanted. So here's what I want to say. Now, for those of you who don't know what happened, Sorare MLB announced Ethereum reward. It looks like cash. I believe it's going to be rewarded in Ethereum, but cash rewards for limited pro, rare pro, super rare pro, and they introduced unique pro, which is a unique competition with all unique cards, which is awesome. And if you're a whale and you've got those uniques, go at it. I think that's great. And they've got a cash prize. They've got a cash prize, and then they have the cards as well. So here was the challenge. My initial knee-jerk reaction was, this is awesome. It's great to see progress. Most of us were very concerned, confused, eager to find out if Ethereum or cash prizes were going to be a thing at some point. And now they are, we know they are. I know that there was some talk from, I think it was LG over at the First Mint had posted in regards to the rake that we see from companies like DK and their projects with the PGA and with the NFL versus the rake was Sorare and the huge disparity. And my reaction to that is, let's see where it goes. Very valid. Obviously, we want to see Sorare do more. At the same time, we're just rolling this out. I do anticipate, because what we have right now are competitions based in those pros, which are complete rarities. Every other competition has mixed rarities. As more cards are released, we should start to phase out the mixed rarities. When we phase those out, I'm hopeful that we'll start to see more Ethereum prizes fill out the other competitions as well. So I look at this as though it's a good start. LG is 100% on point. We do need Sorare to be able to give back and not take so much in that rake. But at the same time, you got to start somewhere. And I think where they started was great. The most exciting part of that announcement for me was not necessarily cash prizes, but it was the unique pro competition. Mostly because I just got into unique. I started playing Unique All-Star right before the beginning of the season. When Moon was nice enough to work out a deal with me, I picked up a couple unique cards so I could, kind of punch my ticket into the contest. Had a decent first week, top 6 get prizes. I snuck into the 6th spot for about an hour, and the afternoon game, bottom of the 9th, Diamondbacks score in might have been the 10th inning actually. Diamondbacks scored, Ketel Marte sunk my team, and I ended up falling out of the reward area. But I felt like, hey, I got a fighting chance. My team is not going to be good enough based on Taylor Hearn and Lars Nootbaar to be able to win in Unique All-Star, but at least I feel like I have a fighting chance to win something. So maybe a couple times a month I'll pick up a tier 3 or maybe even a tier 2 at some point. But I felt like I had a chance. So initially, when we saw the announcement for Unique Pro, I thought, this is great, because there are guys like YNWA, like Moon, like Jui, who crush. And the guys have discretionary income to be able to buy the players they want, which is great. No hate on that. And they also understand baseball and understand roster construction. So they're really hard to beat. And when they're playing in Unique, and I've got a couple unique cards and a bunch of super rares, they're obviously getting that bonus they're going to crush. So the thought is, with Unique Pro opening up, we'll see a bunch of those uniques from All-Star that move over to Unique Pro, and it makes it more competitive. So my initial thought was, this is great. I do have a chance to win now. And then I looked at the prizes, and I want you guys to just kind of swallow this. And I'm going to read stuff again, and I know I talked about how I hate this, but I couldn't shoot this off the top of my head. So in Limited, in the All-Star competition, they reward 470 cards. In Pro, they reward 200, 50 of them are rares to help you step up. In Rare, the All-Star competition has 200 rewards. The Pro has 90. 10 on top of it are super rares. Once again, help you level up. In Super Rare, you have 25 in All-Star and you have 12 in Pro. You do not have any unique rewards in Super Rare Pro. At least we don't right now. But there's a trend, right? 470 to 200, 290, 25 to 12. Unique All-Star previously was 6. Unique Pro, let me back up a little bit. Unique All-Star previously was 6. It got dropped to 3. Unique Pro is also 3. So essentially they robbed Peter to pay Paul. They took 3 of the prizes away from Unique All-Star, moved it to Unique Pro. I was pretty vocal about it. John with Sorare as the community manager does an amazing job. He let me vent about it. He heard me out. He passed that along. We'll see what that means. I know that there were other people who were very frustrated by that because let's be honest, these unique cards are expensive. Most of the unique cards sell for what people's rent or mortgages are, just for the card. Yeah, you can find a couple random deals here and there, but for the most part, if you're in unique, you are basically paying your rent in a card to play. So when I saw that we went from 6 to 3, I was upset. I was frustrated. And it took the air out because as someone who has spent a lot of money in the off season, spends a lot of time. I love baseball and I love Sorare MLB. Ton of fun. But as someone who has really spent a lot of money building up my super rare teams and decided to make that jump into unique only a week before, to see that happen just kind of took all the air out. And it doesn't match the numbers. Doesn't make any sense why they would have cut it to 3. So every other All-Star to Pro competition. Now I will say, I don't play on the football side. So I don't know if that's normal for football. I'm going to assume that it's not, but it just didn't seem right. So Orange Fly, what they did does not motivate me to buy uniques. And that was the question, does the new layout motivate you to buy more uniques? If I was not in unique right now, those 3 prizes would not motivate me to buy any uniques to get in as I was motivated a couple weeks ago. And if I'm in unique right now as I'm in, am I motivated to try to buy more to fill my roster out to compete in Unique Pro? And the answer to that is also no. I need to see Sorare make some changes on that end, and then we can talk. But right now, I've spent a ton of money. And this week, the last, I don't know if it was a week or 10 days, I bought an Austin Riley super rare, a Corbin Carroll super rare, and a Garrett Cole super rare. So it's not as though I'm not motivated or excited to buy better cards to compete, because I am, but dropping rewards down from 6 to 3 didn't really motivate me to do anything on the unique side. So if they want to go ahead and support larger spenders, whales, then it needs to be motivating. And it's not for me. I don't know if it is for you guys. I'd love to hear from you. If you saw this and thought, wow, I'm going to go ahead and get my first 2 unique so I can punch my ticket into the unique all-star competition, I'd love to hear from you. If you decided, that's the chances of me going in and being able to win with only 3 prizes don't motivate me enough to be able to pay 2 months worth of rent on 2 cards and see what happens. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm sure I'll get some feedback from you guys. I'd love to have it as usual. This did go a little longer than I wanted to, even though I didn't touch on a couple topics. But like I said, love to get your feedback. Hope you guys have a fantastic finish to the game week. I've been posting my teams as well. Love to see your teams. I think that there's enough for everybody. So I understand I'm also not going to win every week. So I have no problem, and I feel like we have a very healthy, competitive community. So show me your teams. I want to see who I'm competing against. I want to root for you too. And hopefully you'll say, hey, I like Steve's lineup. Uncle Steve's got it going today. Let's see if we can get a home run for Devers or for Bichette or for Austin Riley tonight, and we'll see how we finish up. So anyway, so that's going to wrap it up for the week. If you are playing Sorare MBA, would love to hear from you. I've been working late every night on my Sorare MBA strategy. I think I've got it ready, but we'll see. Love to hear from you though in the comments on Twitter, Sorare Aces. You can also find me on Discord, Aced Out. I'm always on there. I'm always popping on. Love to chat and love to talk baseball. You guys have a great game week. See ya.